So we're going to see. I've convened faith leaders. And, you know, for those of us of faith, I think that we agree, many of us, that there's nothing about this issue that will require anyone to abandon their faith or change their faith. It's simply saying that the government should not have the ability to decide what an individual does with her own body. There's no doubt there's more work to do. There's no more work to do. We have seen progress, but the work that we need to do is to continue to move the formula as quickly as possible and get it on the shelves. And so we will continue to do this work and do it in a collaborative way, guided by the leadership of so many, including the moms and the dads, who are absolutely our highest priority, because, of course, they are the ones who are raising the babies who will lead the future of our country.
And gas prices? Oh, hello. Gas prices, that really has had an effect. This is gas prices since January of 2017. And again, we look at stay about the same until January of 2021. I wonder what happened then. And then look at this. And in the conversation about gas prices that from the administration lately has been, well, it's all Putin's fault. Well, here's the rising gas prices since President Biden's inauguration right there. And right there is the war that began in Russia. So this little increase right here is the part that's actually there. This is on consumer price inflation. This is on gas prices, same thing. To be able to see this flat line on gas prices, that spike, that's the invasion of Ukraine happening right there, to be able to see what's added onto it since then. So this is not just about the invasion in Ukraine. This has been ongoing since late January 2021. We all remember very well this moment during the presidential campaign. When President Biden was campaigning and he walks over to a young lady in the campaign stop and says, "Look at my eyes. I guarantee you we're going to end fossil fuel. I guarantee you." That was this moment that happened here.
I guarantee you we're going to end fossil fuel.
This is not something totally accidental. It was a drive to say we've got to shift to solar, we've got to shift to wind, we've got to shift to hydro, we've got to shift to other things, and we're going to get rid of fossil fuels, and we're going to accelerate that as fast as possible. Now, I have to tell you, I live in a state that we use a lot of wind power. We use a lot of solar power. We use hydropower. We have a very diverse energy portfolio. But right now, the people in my state are paying much higher prices for gasoline, much higher prices for natural gas, much higher prices for electricity, because the policies that have been put in place are driving up the costs, and people feel it. Now, the administration's response just in the past couple of weeks has been this statement. President Biden said, "My administration is going to continue to do everything it can to lower prices for the American people." I love the word continue to be in there. They're going to continue to do everything that they can. They're going to keep doing these things that clearly have driven up prices overwhelmingly on the American people. It was, let's say, Putin's fault. It's been oil companies' fault. It's been refineries' fault. That's the new one that he actually just put out in the last 24 hours. This is all the faults of refineries that are just taking up too much profit. The challenge has been an ongoing attack on American energy from the very beginning. Literally day one, when President Biden canceled the Keystone Pipeline, he started his process of fulfilling his promise that he made in the campaign that I guarantee you I'm going to end fossil fuels. So day one was canceling the Keystone Pipeline, getting crude oil from Canada, about 800,000 barrels a day. What he didn't announce this day is we still have to have that same 800,000 barrels a day from somewhere because it's heavy crude. We purchase some of our heavy crude from other places. So we still have to get it. His announcement, though, on day one is we're not going to get it from Canada. What people don't realize is this announcement day one was we're not going to get it from Canada. We're going to get it from Russia. How'd that foreign policy work out? Terribly. Day one, we're not going to get oil from Canada. we're going to get it from Russia, we're going to get it from other places instead. He put a moratorium on new federal oil and gas leasing. That moratorium, by the way, still stays in place in multiple areas. 24% of our oil and gas in the United States comes from federal lands and waters. 24%. So what this did was say, for the future of how we're going to develop, we're not going to develop in those areas anymore. I'm going to cut off 24% of the supply coming in. Again, this goes back to his campaign promise. I guarantee you, I'm going to end fossil fuels.
No, we would work it out. We would make sure it's eliminated. No more drilling on federal lands. No more drilling, including offshore. No ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period.
He limited seismic studies necessary for new production in the Gulf. What does that matter? Well, he has opened up some areas and said you can drill for more oil in these areas. Oh, but by the way, you're allowed to do that. But if you want to do seismic testing before you do it, which is a standard, you have to do seismic testing. Oh, we're not doing any more seismic testing this whole year. We're not going to allow you to actually prepare a site. We're just going to tell you you can do it. That's this mode that the administration is in. Produce more oil, but I'm not going to actually allow you to do that with the permitting. He's failed to implement a 5-year offshore leasing program. What difference does that make? By law now, the administration is required to be able to put a 5-year offshore leasing proposal in place. The current one expires on June the 30th of this year. That's days away. There is no present plan in place to be able to replace it. In fact, I personally asked Secretary Holland, the Secretary of Interior, and she said, we plan to, by June the 30th, the deadline to have a new one in place, we plan that day to be able to put out a comment of what we could do if we do a new plan. And I said, when will that be complete? Her response to me was, we don't have a deadline when that will be complete. So what is required by law to have a plan for how we're going to do offshore leasing? They're going to instead, by the day it should be in place, begin discussing when they might do it in the days ahead. Again, it goes back to, we're going to talk about it, but we're actually not going to put this lease sale plan in place. He canceled a lease sale in Alaska's Cook Inlet, where some of our oil comes from. He closed off half of the National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska to any future energy development. He pushed regulations that would slow or halt a build-out of natural gas pipelines and liquefied natural gas export infrastructure. This is a FERC piece that they actually put a new leader in place in that spot, and then the first action they took was to make putting pipelines heading to the Gulf to sell natural gas to Europe harder to do and more expensive to do. And if we want to do natural gas pipelines across our country, he would also make it more expensive, more complicated. So literally, as the price is going up for natural gas, he made it even more expensive to be able to transport natural gas and harder to be able to sell it to our allies. He proposed new financial regulations designed to dry up investment for traditional energy projects. This body will remember nominees that were put by the Biden administration to go to the Federal Reserve that stated out loud their goal of coming onto the Federal Reserve was to cut off access to capital for any kind of energy development that was a fossil fuel. Literally saying you can't get loans and money to get access to that. So make it harder to actually move it when you get it, if you can get it at all on federal lands, and make it harder to be able to access to get capital. He's also proposed raising taxes on oil and gas development. Remember my comment about, or his comment actually, saying he's going to continue to do everything he can to lower prices for the American people for energy? Well, what he's actually done is he's proposed a whole new set of taxes on all energy companies. In fact, even recently, a conversation about a windfalls profit tax on energy companies. Now, here's the basic economics that this group knows well. If you tax it more, you get less of it. If you get less of it, the price goes up. This is not hard. This is basic economics. But yet this administration has proposed multiple new taxes in their budget that they just put out in the previous month. At the same time, he said, I'm going to continue to do what I can to lower prices. At the same time, he put out proposals to dramatically increase oil and gas costs.